You didn't click on this by chance. This is divine alignment. Something in you has been sensing it. That shift, that stirring, that silent knowing that you were meant for more. And guess what? You're right. You are chosen. You are set apart. And this moment right here, it's not random. It's a confirmation from heaven that your transformation is already in motion. You've been walking through the shadows, carrying silent victories and hidden pain. But what's happening in your life isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. You're not being left behind. You're being prepared. The glow you're about to carry can't be bought, faked, or copied, because it's being built deep within your spirit. This message is for the one who's felt unseen, but remained faithful. For the one who's endured the process when it would have been easier to quit. For the one who knows deep down there's something different about you. And you're right. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to shift atmospheres, to carry light, to reflect glory. So lean in. Don't just listen, receive. Because by the end of this message, you won't just feel inspired, you'll feel ignited. And if your spirit is already resonating, drop a 55 in the comments and let heaven know, I'm ready. Let's unlock the beauty that's been forming beneath the surface. Because this isn't about hype, this is about heaven. And it's your time. Let's begin. What begins in silence often carries the deepest transformation. Before a significant shift unfolds externally, an internal recalibration takes place, one that dismantles what has been quietly growing in the background for years. This is not the arena of applause or recognition, but the quiet zone where inner strength is shaped. It's the invisible season of shedding layers, of confronting echoing doubts, of reordering the unseen architecture of the soul. Lately, the unrest you feel isn't a sign of derailment, it's the friction of realignment. Foundations are being leveled before anything substantial is built upon them. The internal landscape must be cleared of distortions, old patterns of self-doubt, unacknowledged pain, the quiet undercurrents of resentment, and the habitual defenses born of past wounds. None of this is destruction for its own sake. It's a process of redesign. Sometimes it appears as separation, as sudden shifts, as moments that unearth forgotten emotions. Yet these are not signs of rejection. They are the groundwork for resilience. Not absence of favor, but preparation for capacity. Where you are meant to go demands more than skill. It calls for rootedness, clarity, and unwavering integrity. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. This season is not chaos, it's calibration. The seeming pause is purposeful. It's where the past is stripped of its power and the future is shaped with intention. The process unmasks inherited narratives and silences internal noise so that identity can emerge from clarity, not confusion. The truth is not in how others see you, but in how the core of you is reshaped by love and vision. True transformation doesn't start with affirmation. It begins with inward alignment. In that private moment of surrender, where the deepest layers are revealed and refined, something eternal is set in motion. This is where long-lasting purpose begins to crystallize, not because of outward talent, but because the inner vessel can carry weight without cracking. Now is the moment when the unseen work is reaching completion. The refining is not for the past version of you, but for the one who is stepping into something greater. And the depth of that next chapter depends on how willing the heart was to be made whole. When the internal is settled, the external unfolds without resistance. Let the inner construction finish its course. Everything else will follow. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147, 3. Imagine a master potter at the wheel, his hands gentle but firm. Before he reshapes the clay into something new, he first softens what's been hardened by fire. He presses into the cracks, the hidden fractures, the places no one sees, not to destroy, but to restore. That's exactly what God is doing in your life right now. He's not rushing to put you on display. He's taking time to remake you from the inside out. And chosen one, this remaking is sacred. What others applauded was only the shell. They saw the steady walk, but not the bruised ankles. They cheered your courage, but missed the internal trembling. People complimented your strength while never catching a glimpse of the silent storms swirling behind your stillness. They didn't know about the nights you cried into the pillow, the days you showed up with a smile while carrying invisible grief. But heaven saw it all. God never missed a moment. And that's why the pause came. That's why things felt like they were falling apart. Because God knew what needed to be dealt with before you could rise again. See, the delay wasn't denial. It was divine surgery. The disconnects weren't rejection. They were rescue. What looked like closed doors were actually covered doors, shielding you from people and places not built to handle your anointing. You've been asking for destiny, but God knew that true purpose can't rest on a wounded soul. Unattended pain turns into silent patterns, patterns that sabotage progress, relationships, and self-worth. And your foundation matters too much for God to build anything lasting on top of bleeding places. So he pressed pause, not to punish, but to purify. He's been healing the places you thought didn't need healing. He's been touching the memories you tried to forget, untangling the lies that wrapped themselves around your identity. And here's the truth. You're not being buried, you're being planted. The darkness you've walked through wasn't death, it was depth. The silence wasn't the absence of God, it was the atmosphere of transformation. Chosen one, what's coming next won't require you to perform. It will require you to be whole. Because the oil you're about to carry can't sit on fractured ground. And the glory that's rising in you is weighty. It needs a vessel that's been sealed with surrender. This is not the end. It's the beginning of the real you. Not the image they applauded, but the identity heaven has been shaping. So lean in. Let the healing finish its course. Because when God brings you forward, there will be no cracks in your foundation. Only grace, strength, and beauty that couldn't be faked. You've been processed for a purpose. And soon, what was done in secret will be your testimony in the open. The unraveling then was mercy. Not harsh discipline, but intentional love. It pulled away the noise so the truth could be heard. It carved space around a soul needing rest from pretending. It distanced you from crowds so the core could be tended. There were patterns to break, false stories to unlearn, fears to name, and masks to lay down. This wasn't about improvement, it was about liberation. Not about changing your behavior, but about freeing your essence. Deep restoration cannot be rushed. It happens in stillness, in sacred quiet, far from the pressure to perform or be perceived a certain way. And in that stillness, something holy was happening. Step beyond the screen, join and help light the way for others. It got exhausting. The kind of weariness that doesn't come from activity, but from invisibility, carrying weight while being unseen, meeting expectations while your own needs went unnoticed. But even then, there was presence, not loud or theatrical, but steady. The kind that doesn't demand a stage, just an open heart. Not all healing arrives with spectacle. Sometimes it shows up as gentle truth, making room for authenticity. It whispers, the effort can cease, the mask can fall, the ache can be acknowledged without shame. Here, in this place, there is safety, there is witness, there is love. And now, what once pierced is becoming power. What was hidden is becoming holy ground, not erased, but redefined. The pain didn't disappear, it transformed. What once silenced you now speaks wisdom. What once broke you now nourishes your purpose. The strength that held everything together is giving way to a deeper wholeness, one that no longer needs to pretend it's unshaken. Many carry a reflection shaped not by who they are, but by who they had to be to survive. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Sometimes the most difficult transformation is not stepping into something new, but letting go of the false layers that once kept you safe. When life pushed too hard, when voices around you were louder than the one within, a version of you was formed, crafted in defense, not in design. It wasn't born from purpose, but patched together from protection. It adjusted to the environment, mastered silence to avoid being dismissed, achieved relentlessly to outrun invisibility, poured out endlessly just to be noticed. But that construct, though resilient, wasn't built to carry the true weight of destiny. The deeper calling resting on your life needed a vessel rooted in truth, not in adaptation, not in avoidance. And so, the undoing began. Bit by bit, what was never truly part of your essence started to fall away. Outdated beliefs unraveled. Inherited expectations lost their grip. Narratives that once dictated your behavior, like value must be proven or being seen is dangerous, began to crumble, not as punishment, but as liberation. The old rules no longer served the life waiting for you. This internal dismantling wasn't meant to break you down. It was meant to bring you back to the design that was intact before life taught you to fracture. The raw, unfiltered self, not shaped by performing, pleasing, or proving. And while the process stung, while it felt like the ground beneath you vanished, it wasn't the real you being erased, but the illusion you no longer needed. The false identity served its time. It helped you survive, yes, but it was never meant to be permanent. In its place, your true self is awakening, the one no longer afraid of standing tall, the one no longer adjusting volume for others' comfort, the one no longer seeking validation in borrowed titles or temporary praise. This isn't just healing, it's revelation, not a revision of what's broken, but a reintroduction to what was whole all along. The you who doesn't fear being visible. The you who no longer lives under the weight of unspoken expectations. The you who moves, speaks, and chooses from a place of settled identity. Nothing genuine can grow from a script you were never meant to follow. That's why this unmasking matters. That's why this unraveling is holy. Because the life ahead of you demands integrity, not just in action, but in being. Now comes the clarity, the sound of your voice unshaken, the steadiness of presence no longer anchored in performance. No more rehearsed roles, no more edited emotions, just the steady return to the self you were always becoming. Some energies can't be explained, they're simply felt. There's a quiet fire growing inside, not sparked by affirmation or image, but by endurance, by transformation, by something sacred pressing through the soul. It doesn't shimmer for attention, and it isn't manufactured in front of a lens. It isn't styled, filtered, or rehearsed. It emerged in the shadows, while no one was watching, when everything in you was unraveling, and yet you stayed anchored. This inner light came through unspoken battles, from choosing peace when anxiety knocked, from showing up in the unknown, from giving what little you had when emptiness echoed. It rose from choosing stillness over striving, surrender over self-preservation, and hope over hollow praise. Something has undeniably shifted. It isn't louder, it's deeper. You don't enter a space to impress, yet somehow things bend toward the gravity of your presence, not because of a title or aesthetic, but because of the weight of what you carry. This is what renewal looks like when it's no longer about performance. It's the kind of depth that only comes from living close to truth. Not the surface kind of beauty, but the kind that holds when everything around is breaking. It's the strength in silence, the serenity that comes after the flood, the clarity that settles when you finally stopped striving to be seen. While many chase a glow built on upgrades and image, the real kind is quieter and costlier. It grows when the soul is cleared of clutter, when ego is dismantled, when comparison loses its voice. It's not about adding, it's about refining. Now you walk not with arrogance, but with rootedness. Not with a desire to be validated, but with an unshakable awareness that you've been shaped for more than applause. There's no need to push your way forward. What's meant for you recognizes who you've become. This glow isn't artificial, it's aftermath. It's the slow brilliance that lingers after deep healing. It's the mark of someone who's been undone and reformed, not polished for display, but purified by truth. So yes, some will glance and not understand the depth of the radiance, but you'll know. You'll remember the moments it was forged, the nights it was born, the inner decisions that brought you to this stillness. And now you shine, not for the spotlight, but as a quiet testimony, proof that what's built in the unseen eventually emerges unmistakably, not to be worshipped, but to point to what's possible. Keep radiating, not from perfection, but from presence, not to be followed, but to illuminate what it looks like to be free. Because the light you now carry didn't come from being admired. It came from choosing to heal. Real growth does not begin with visibility. It begins with depth. Before the outward rise, there is always an inward refining. The journey upward requires roots strong enough to carry the weight that elevation demands. While the desire to move forward burns within, something greater works beneath the surface, shaping substance over speed. What looks like stillness is actually strategy. The desire for expansion, for opportunity, for movement. It has been heard. But the response did not come in the form of open doors. It came in the form of introspection. Instead of placing you at the center, the process pulled you back, drawing you into a space of recalibration, not to hinder, but to fortify. There, hidden from applause, the internal architecture was reworked. Subtle pride disguised as confidence was dissolved. The constant need to prove was unraveled. Emotional triggers that masqueraded as strength were exposed for what they were: untended grief, quiet fear, old echoes of rejection. The drive for approval began to lose its grip, not because the mission was abandoned, but because the vessel was being matured to carry it well. Elevation without foundation is not promotion, it's pressure without peace. Higher places reveal everything that lower places could conceal, and the journey you're walking is too important to collapse under unresolved weight. So the process took time. Integrity was built in silence. Discernment was sharpened in waiting. Intentions were sifted until purity outweighed performance. You were taught how to lead in obscurity, how to speak to yourself with truth, how to respond without resentment, how to carry power with tenderness. What is forming now is not surface-level success. It is sustainability, the kind of depth that remains steady when influence arrives, the kind of substance that doesn't crave spotlight because it knows its assignment. This is not a moment built for applause. This is a life built for impact. And this season, it is not stagnation. It is sacred construction. The alignment of your inner self with the magnitude of your external calling. And once that congruence settles, breakthrough will not feel like a surprise. It will feel like a natural next step. Because what's ahead doesn't just require gifting. It demands grounding. And the refining you've endured has been a divine investment in your capacity to handle what's coming without losing who you are. If you felt unseen, it's not dismissal, it's design. Every stripped-back layer, every closed door, every slow day has been part of a greater formation. What you're becoming is not for temporary validation, it's for long-term vision. And when the shift arrives, when the way opens, you won't question your readiness. You'll recognize the echo of every private surrender woven into that moment. This isn't about reaching the top. It's about remaining whole once you arrive. So keep showing up with humility. Keep building inwardly. Stay honest in the quiet. Because this transformation is the doorway to what's next, and it's unfolding closer than you know. Not all loss is loss. Some of it is divine reordering in disguise. The disconnections weren't random. The shift in your social rhythm, the sudden silence from once familiar voices, the partings without reason. They weren't punishment. They were redirection. You had been requesting alignment, asking for a path infused with clarity, for relationships that wouldn't pull you backwards. But before the right voices could enter, the wrong echoes had to fade. There were people attached to your journey, not your calling. Individuals whose intentions were covered in charm but rooted in insecurity. Presences that once comforted but now conflicted with your growth. What seemed like subtraction was, in truth, sacred separation. Not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Some things are removed to make space for the authentic. As the noise faded, your inner world started shifting. The interior was being restructured, not for aesthetics, but for alignment. You weren't being made more likable. You were being made more accurate. The reshaping wasn't about your image, it was about your insight. Because the partnerships being prepared for your future require a refined discernment. Not a longing to be surrounded, but a clarity to know who should stand beside you. In that hidden season, your patterns were reprogrammed. No longer mistaking attention for care, no longer drawn by familiarity that masked dysfunction. You stopped chasing company that disrupted your peace. You stopped choosing presence over purpose. Now, something new is unfolding. You're not pulling people toward you by force. They are being pulled by the quiet weight of your spirit, by the strength forged in solitude, by the peace you fought for. These new alignments won't drain your energy. They'll echo your mission. They won't compete for space in your life. They'll expand the territory together. These aren't placeholders. These are partners, not here to consume, but to collaborate. They arrive not as a reward, but as a response to the depth you've embraced, to the clarity you've cultivated. And what's most powerful is this: you'll recognize them without second-guessing. You've grown past the point of entertaining misalignment. You can now feel authenticity in silence. You can now detect pretense without proof. You're no longer driven by emotional gaps, but by spiritual vision. This new chapter isn't about numbers or names, it's about resonance. Fewer voices, deeper bonds, fewer invitations, stronger alignments. No more lingering in rooms where your presence feels like a disruption. No more shrinking to secure shallow loyalty. This inner refinement has made you magnetic, not to popularity, but to purpose. The kind of presence that doesn't shine to attract, but radiates from within, because it has been lit by transformation. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Now, you are ready, not to be surrounded, but to be supported. Not to impress, but to impact. The connections ahead will not pull from your soul. They'll pour into your assignment. And what's coming won't feel like striving. It'll feel like synergy. There's a strength forming in you now that didn't come from ease. It came from being emptied and rebuilt in silence. What's taking shape isn't ornamental, it's elemental. It's forged in the deep work of the soul, where no cameras reach, where applause cannot echo. This isn't polish for appearance, it's preparation for impact. You aren't being refined to be admired, you're being redefined to be catalytic. Because what radiates from within you now carries weight, not the kind that draws attention, but the kind that disrupts what's been stagnant for too long. This light speaks of survival. It speaks of grace, wrestled from dark nights. And it speaks of a power that doesn't need to announce itself to be undeniable. What's coming through you is not performance, it's presence. The kind of essence that shakes stale atmospheres. The kind of shift that people feel before they even know why. And it's not coming from your outer voice. It's flowing from the clarity you carry after wrestling with your past and winning. You're becoming the breaker of old frameworks, the one who doesn't just survive dysfunction, but disarms it, the one who carries peace sharp enough to challenge chaos. What's changed in you is not style, it's structure. You're not covered in a glow-up, you're armored in spiritual resolve. And the enemy knows it. That's why things intensified before they improved. That's why silence became your companion. That's why healing costs so much. Because what's emerging through you can't be mimicked. It can't be imitated. It was only born through the depth of surrender. You're walking proof of reclamation. A life once fractured, now fused by fire and vision. People will sense it. Not just in what you say, but in how you carry space. You'll enter quietly, and yet everything will recalibrate. Not because of charm, but because of conviction. You're not shining for compliments. You're igniting for change. What once wounded you is now your wisdom. What once held you hostage now fuels your freedom. And the transformation isn't just for you. It's a lifeline for others still waiting to believe it's possible. This isn't about being noticed, it's about being effective. And everything you've walked through in private is about to have public purpose. Not so you can be seen, but so light can break out through you, into places still cloaked in shadows. You don't just inspire, you interrupt cycles. You don't just glow, you guide. You don't just overcome, you overturn what kept others bound. You are walking evidence of a divine rebuild. And now, the internal reconstruction is radiating outward as undeniable proof. Don't shrink to ease their discomfort. Don't dilute to maintain old connections. The clarity in your eyes and steadiness in your voice came at too high a cost to be softened for acceptance. This is not vanity, it's divine intention. This is not performance, it's proof of purpose. So stand tall, speak when moved, move when called, because the work isn't finished, it's activated, and everywhere you step, transformation will follow. Not because you are trying to make something happen, but because you've become the very embodiment of what already did.